here, so we're ready for that. We care very much. First item on our agenda is the 2020 summer projects. Looks like Garrett, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry. We're ready now. I think we had a few technical difficulties, but I do want to start tonight. We have our facilities committee update. We are going to get into the 2020 summer projects. I also want to give you guys a high-level overview of where we're at with the LTFM tool and the planning tool for the larger study. So we have an overview and a demonstration of that for everybody to see what we've been working towards. And then we'll get into the 2020 projects and our recommendation. We want to start with the tool so you can see where the information is coming from, though. So let me pull this back out of here and blow up your cloud-based tool. Upper right. This one? Okay. So this is your Penridge Public School building information. This is the LTFM. This is our long-term facility maintenance planning tool plan that we talked to you guys about in our interview back in April, I think maybe May or June. I'm sorry if there's a glare on the TV. If you can't see this, I apologize. It's a little bit difficult, but this is the home screen. This is what you see when you enter into the tool for the first time. This is what the district administrator saw for the first time November 1st. We're showing it to the board tonight. It is not yet complete. There's some work that needs to be done. We're prioritizing some scopes of work with Kelly, Mr. Harper right now. And we also are reviewing some of the projects that are in here, but it's pretty close to final. You have, as you can see in your upper left-hand corner, roughly 1,300,000 square feet, 14 total facilities that we study. There's 34.15 years is the average age of your facilities across the district. And then your average age by school, you're seeing, it's easier for me to stand, is right here. So you can see the Siler Elementary average age of the building is 59 years, that being the oldest average age of your facilities. And then this is just mapping out your total square footage per building and where that square footage is allocated, being that the high school and district admin office is the biggest facility for obvious reasons. And then over here is your enrollment by school. So it's just kind of giving you a profile of your facilities, your enrollment, who you are, what you are, Penridge, all things Penridge. This is also a graph down here, just showing students relative to building age and size, so that you can see how much of your population and what the amount of time that they're spending in the age of your facility. So the older facilities being highlighted on here. This is just you'll see throughout. It carries a Bing map, which is kind of a Google image of the actual locations. You could zoom in on that and see the facilities if you wanted to. It's a pretty powerful front end here. The next tab on the bottom is a 10-year plan. So where are we at right now? The first thing that you're going to see in the top left-hand corner, this always reads left to right. 672 projects have been identified. That does not mean there's 672 projects to do. That's 672 scopes of work that we've identified for conversation. The total budget of those 672 projects, $80,957,451. And before you all freak out, I will put a lot of definition to why it says 80,900,000. All right. This tool here, this is a total budget by funding. Right now, it all says deferred. Don't worry about that. We are going to talk about where the money's coming from for the project. So ultimately, we'll populate that with whether it's capital fund, whether it's a borrowing, those kind of things. We can populate that for how these projects are going to be funded, how you're paying for them, so that you all can keep track of that at any time. The total budget by school, again, these are your facilities, all of them in order. $9.6 million worth of needs identified at West Rockville Elementary School is the highest, then coming down from the high school and on down. We have a total budget per square foot, so it does break out the cost per square foot per facility as well. A lot of people like that information. It's useful for planning purposes, also for architectural purposes and getting feasibility studies. And then we have our total budget by facility system. So as you can see, there's a $22 million allocation in this plan for HVAC. The reason that number is so high is because the DOAS is in this 2029 column, which I'll talk about. That's obviously completely optional for the district to pursue, but we have that number, we have that scope of work, both itemized and budgeted. So that $22 million being the biggest allocation, the reason for that again is if you were to install air conditioning across the facilities that don't have it, that's elevating that number. The second largest number is in the casework category. We did go through the facilities. We're looking at classroom casework, administrative casework, the conditions of that. Being that these are older facilities, the casework is actually in good condition, but we showed you what it would cost to replace it if you were looking to do that. So that's the second largest spend that's identified, and then you go on down to mechanical systems, lighting, fire alarm, doors. And you can click on all of that, you'll get the total scope of work in that $6 million. There's a lot of functionality here. But what we'll talk about tonight is this, the total budget per construction year. So what you're seeing right now in 2020, it says 1.3 million. I'm gonna show you a number tonight of 1.1 million. It's come down slightly because there's some things that we've moved out of 2020 in conversation today that has changed that slightly. And then you've got 3.3 million in 2021, 1 million in 2022. We have $5.1 million needs identified in 2023, 3.6 in 2024, and 0.2 million to roughly 200,000 in 2025. We are focused on the 5-year plan right now. This category that is the 2029, the 66.5, which is where a majority of that $80 million number is coming from. That is feasibility-like work. So looking at your facility, when we walk in and we say, okay, VCT tile, another 20 years, is it going to last or will it need to be replaced? It's probably going to need to be replaced in 20 years. It's in this category. It's not a maintenance item. It's a facility upgrade. We put it out in 2029 just to show you that it exists, to report back on its condition, and to show you what the value of replacement would be if for any reason you wanted to plan or budget that type of work. You have access to that at all times. So when you go into this, you can see all types of different scopes. This is actually maintenance work down here. This is really your facilities maintenance. So these much smaller items. So this number again is for future planning purposes. These are your maintenance items. One thing that I do want to point out about these numbers tonight, we are going to show you a number of site plans for different locations. We've got we have looked to address some of the safety needs at some of the elementary schools for the parent drop-offs. And bus loops where that interconnection is twice a day. We also have looked at this site, in particular this campus, both from an athletic field standpoint and from additional parking on the site, so you see all of that. The numbers and the estimates that are provided for that work are not yet in this tool. So they will come up as you plan to work your site improvements into the project. So those numbers will come up slightly. But as you can see, as far as maintenance, we're in pretty good shape over the next 5 years. Not having identified that many major needs. I think Jeff and his team in particular on the MEP side have been pretty impressed with the condition of the facilities as far as maintenance and where we stand right now. So we haven't identified any major red herrings that are out there, like maybe some major spend you need to identify. Those that we have are in the 2020 year as we discussed. So that's your 10-year plan. That's kind of a big profile of what you're seeing. You can drill down further. We can do this 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, however you want to see these tabs. Right now we're showing a 2-year plan. The total budget over 2 years is $4.5 million, 70 projects. We're showing that then divided by year, so 1.32 million in 2020, roughly 3.2 in 2021 of maintenance needs or maintenance priorities. We have our budget by school over those 2 years. Again, you can click into the 1.3, it'll show you exactly what it is. We'll sort down here. So this is a scrolling tab, right? So every single line item, and down to the $1,900 line items, all the way up to the $154,000 line items, there's a project description and a total budget, as well as the location and the construction year that it's currently identified for in the plan. So that's some of the kind of functionality at this level. And again, on this side, it's always going to tell you where you're spending your money, what types of facility systems. Is it lighting? Is it technology, mechanical, what have you? So when you are presenting this, you are talking about this at a board level. You might have that question, okay, what is the technology spend this year? Why is that so high? What are we replacing? You can drill right into it. It's the PA systems that we're talking about in these buildings that may need to be replaced. There's some security needs, some vestibule things that we've looked at that are flowing, that have inflated that number at this point. So it's to stimulate that conversation and to understand what's happening in your buildings, also where you're spending your money. This is the plan details. So this is the location where most people spend the most time in the LTFM tool or on the app. Here's why. What you're seeing here obviously is your 14 facilities. These are your maintenance plan years, 2021 all the way out to 2025. Again, ignoring the 2029 column for maintenance items. You have the ability per school per year to click on, this 266. It's going to show you what that is at Bedminster in 2021, right? So that's automatically repopulating for you, so you can quickly search what we're planning to do that year and what the budget for that is. Additionally, I want to point out we are adding to every budget to every estimate that's done. It will add as we project out. I think, what is it, 3%? It's roughly 3% that we're adding right now for inflation over time. So the cost of inflation is built into these budgets so that you're preparing for real dollars at that time. We will update these estimates as necessary, because every now and again, we're gonna revise estimates in conversations with Kelly, things that have changed. When those estimates change, it will tell you the date that they were edited, and they will get an update for cost, inflation, all those things. So these are project costs too, not construction costs. This is what it would cost, the total cost of the job to the district, soft costs and hard costs. That's really the planner. Again, like I said, the sortability, you can sort this a million different ways. You can sort it by total by building, you can sort it by total by year, you can sort it by building per year, and then all of your data is going to be down here. As you can see, we have a lot of data populated into this tool already, so the usability part of it is pretty nice. We do have our district map, which again, there's a lot of mapping functions in this database. It's just showing you the location of your facilities from an aerial view. And then we have the same type of home screen for each facility. So you can sort it them just by facility. It's going to show you the total budget for that building for that year, the total number of students, so you can see the impact of your dollars that are spent. We're showing you the area or the square footage per student, which is kind of a unique calculator as well, because a lot of districts use that for planning purposes. And then the amount of projects that are calculated through 2029 for the high school, you know, $9.5 million. Again, this really should say 2040, but that's where we're at right now. So I want to give you guys an update of what we're working towards, what our team has been working on, and what we want to accomplish for you all, and ultimately turn over for your planning purposes and to discuss with this committee. What we do with this information is where we're going next, right? Because we talk about the 2020 projects. Let's get out of this real quick. Which I think what was on the agenda. So we still need more of your time than we already have. Review the 2020 scopes of work. This was the LTFM. We talked about this at the last time, where they came from, how we were prioritizing 2020 because the database wasn't done. Now that it is farther along, you can kind of scrap that right-hand side. We've always shown this. This is our schedule. Our development window for projects, as we said before and we'll say again, is anywhere from this Q2, April to June timeline. We want to be developing and designing through October and December. Our optimal bid period occurring anywhere from October to January, really October to February. We don't want to get too close to March to avoid and higher levels of competition. And then this timeline here. If we have a contract in place in Q1, we can take that time, then that's our lead time to get equipment on site, to be preparing for the black line, which is your summer construction schedule, to avoid any headaches with or interactions with your teachers and students during the day. The summer 2020 project scope of work. The priorities that we identified were at Graz, Central, South, Penridge High School, Transportation DSC. Diablo Elementary School was on here. We did bump the PA component of Diabler because there was some connectability things that we wanted to discuss. This necessarily makes sense to pursue this summer, but we did update our budgets. It has moved from the 1.3 that was presented to 1.1, and that's also being shown in that tool. A more limited scope of work, but this was the scope of work that everyone was in agreement to, is the priority for the summer of 2020. Outside of, again, what we're going to talk about with the site work that Mark will present, and we can talk about the schedule for that work, especially on this site, because if we're adding parking, the nice thing that we do have is it's exterior to the building. We can do and construct at different times. We don't have to necessarily squeeze that into the summer schedule, which might help us with competitive pricing and bidding as well. So we will talk about that.
Can you go back for just 1 second, please? Mr. Harper, I just want to confirm what Mr. Lewis just said, because I know at the last meeting when we talked about the Diablo program, the recommendation was because of evaluating its connection with the systems talking to each other, that the system was still in enough condition that it will work. It's not like we're going to go a year without a PA system at Diablo.
Right, so that's a fair analysis. And district-wide, we were informed that all of our similar PA systems are at that not support level where they're not making parts for it anymore. I mean, you look at the district as a whole to implement some sort of solution.
But I just wanted to publicly say again, I know we talked about it last month, but I want to say, just in case somebody's watching this video and not last month's video, the Diablo PA system will work fine in the fall.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, anything that was emergent conditions.
Well, and just, because I don't know if the public understands, because I don't know if I would have understood this, not having been in a situation, but the issue that we're looking at is the fact that there's different systems out there where they can all communicate with each other. And so if we replace one in isolation without looking at what systems for the whole district, we could end up replacing one system and then figure out a district system, and then it can't communicate with the one school. And so if we're looking at that district-wide, it makes sense to do that at one time and figure out what district-wide system to use so they can all communicate. So if Dr. Bolton wants to give a message across the entire district, he'll have the capability. And the next time we do like a graduation survey or something, right? We can do your video right across the whole district at the same time.
That was very well stated.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for that, yeah. The lighting, we did present this at the last meeting. We talked about the good option versus the better option with lighting. I think you had a question about that, Dr. Bolton, that I did want to address for you. One was the better project was the dimmability. It was this fixture replacement.
So which one is which?
The good. Good is, okay, the good option.
That's
I know, that's a terrible answer.
It's
It's
a good one.
I apologize.
Hold down with the band.
It's just semantics, right? Yeah, so. The good option is a direct wire. It's a tube replacement option, so it's not replacing fixtures, it's replacing the tubes with LEDs. The better option is a troffer kit with a dimmable switch, which is going to give you lighting, dimmability, and fluctuate.
There's two aspects to the dropper kits. One is the dimmability, the other has a light diffuser on it. So it reduces glare on any type of screen electronics. So there's really two elements to that are educational components, enhance the learning environment. So that's in the better option.
So the troffer kits that you're talking about with the dimmability is on the right-hand side?
Yes, correct.
The left-hand side, the one that is called the good option,
Yes.
is then just,
Correct. The light will look the same, you just have an in-lane benefit. It's an LED.
And again, one thing that we were showing here is the good option. You've got a more attractive, simple payback. It's 15.7 years here, which might not be that attractive. Why is it that high? Keep in mind, we do have the stadium field lighting as well as the stadium field house, as well as the stadium field house interior and exterior. We have interior and exterior lighting throughout the district. So that's going to bring your simple payback down a little bit because there's not a lot of burn hours on those lights.
And they're expensive lights.
Right. So I would never replace field lighting, stadium lighting for an energy savings project. If you're truly trying to save energy, it would be for the quality of the light. No one's LED. It's not going to be justified by
And maintenance.
and maintenance.
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely.
So it would probably, your payoff would be a lot better if you took out those aspects and concentrated on the
Correct.
other part of this proposal, right?
Spaces like this where you're lighting obviously these areas, was 12, 14 hours a day. That's where your paybacks are going to be. And we could strip that out, and you're going to have much faster, simple payback. But we just wanted to show you all of the lighting and what it would look like as a package. The payback for the troffer kits, that's not an energy savings project. It's truly a facility enhancement project. It's a learning environment enhancement. There's major environmental enhancement involved in that, as being able to have that flexibility, especially as you're going to laptops for education using smart boards. There's a big advantage there. So that's more of an upgrade or enhancement rather than an efficiency measure. The other thing I should point out, he mentioned maintenance. I'm sorry, your hand's raised.
When you're done, the only thing I would say is, also keep in mind, there may be specific areas inside each building where you want the very good, the better solution over the good solution, so that you don't have to spend the second option everywhere throughout the district. Other districts have done that. Computer rooms, for instance, there are certain types of labs, so you can mix and match those options where you see fit.
so it's not one or the other?
That's correct.
You can, so we could do, a lot of districts have done, where we do dimmable fixtures in classrooms. Corridors, we're just doing a replacement because it's fixed lighting, those kind of things make sense, and they do bring the cost down and improve the payback. The only other thing is the recyclable nature of the bulb itself is definitely an attractive piece for a school district to leave lights in. But those are some of the benefits of LED lighting.
So, and you also had mentioned, I think before, that you could set up the different examples of different rooms,
Yes.
right? So that we can see actually what that difference looks like and
We can do mock environments for you, and the teachers, that will actually be in the classrooms. The teacher can also give you guys feedback, administration feedback to present to you. They can talk about the differences themselves, you guys can see them, however you want to do it. And we can pick a building and or two buildings in locations that make sense for you guys. So, Dr. Gould, you can tell us if you'd like us to do that.
Can you give me a sense, and I'm sure there's an obvious reason, if you look at like grass, right, it's about halfway down, dead end grass, from the good option to the one on the right, it's about a $37,000 difference.
Yeah.
Right, it goes from 123 to 160. If you go to south, it goes from 194 to 346. Like from a percentage standpoint, it's a much more significant increase. What causes that? Is that age? Is that number? Is that
It's the number of fixtures that are the high-end fixtures versus, these are a mix of probably in classrooms. It may be the existing wiring, might be an issue that we have to reconfigure the wiring on it. So there's several factors in there that can change the price, so it's not this flat.
Well, it's the exterior.
And the
There's
exterior-
substantially
the
more
exterior
exterior
lighting.
lighting on some of these
That's-
sites than others,
that's
so
a big
that's a big, this exterior lighting's not greatly expensive. Some of your buildings are more well lit outside than others, some have much more parking lot lighting, those things, so the exterior lighting is where you really start to see very clearly.
yeah, and secondary schools?
Yeah.
A lot more of that.
Is it worth looking at individual buildings to see, so if the 15.7 years is an average or combined aggregate of all of them, are there any buildings that have a really good simple payback that maybe
Yeah.
start there?
We can provide that detail, yeah, I don't have it tonight, I mean, we have it, I don't have it in this presentation, because there are buildings that do make more sense.
Well, and it would also be interesting is, as you pointed out, to kind of get a sense for how much of that lighting, if you take out the ones that aren't as cost effective right now, like what about the exterior lighting later? Looking at the buildings and what would the hybrid option look
Yeah.
like in a building if you wanted to do the better lighting in the classrooms, but you're not really worried about that as much in other areas of the building, right? So seeing what that kind of combination looks like.
It would be certainly better than the high options.
Right.
So we can put that together for you guys, is to put that, we'll go with the classrooms, we'll keep the visibility, we'll go to the fixed lighting and not replacing the fixtures. And, those places don't make sense, bathrooms and corridors. And then we can strip out the exterior if you want. Now, exterior lighting, some people have a strong opinion on exterior lighting because it does enhance the facade, it does enhance the site, also enhance security. So that's a big part of site lighting, especially the neighborhood schools. But we can break that up.
And the pole lights are harder to change, so, from a maintenance perspective, the ones you really wanna do, unfortunately, don't have a great payback, but those high pole lights, you put it in there, you don't have to change for 10, 15 years.
One more lighting question, we talked about controls, are any of the controls part of that number?
The lighting, as far as lighting controls, the actual control in the classroom.
Kelly, are you talking about the high school in particular?
Any of them, I know there was different numbers and levels.
There's basic occupancy sensor controls, but when you talk about the lighting control system you have at the high school, the answer to that question is no, it is not in those numbers. The replacement you would need at the high school to get the same functionality.
I don't think we want that anymore.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
don't
say, I
think
don't
you do
think
either.
it makes sense to have.
They're so
Personally,
expensive.
yeah.
and it's finicky, yes.
Okay.
You're gonna have the localized control as well as the occupancy control that you see. The larger control systems, they're complicated, they end up not working sometimes, they're expensive,
Agreed.
which you have here. For our summer 2020 projects and the pursuit of the 2020 project, it has been our recommendation and will continue to be our recommendation, the procurement for this scope of work in particular, that would be different for what we're gonna talk about with Mark, is that these will be done under utilizing a VISA agreement. In order to utilize a VISA agreement, and for us to perform the work under a VISA contract, we would have to put out an RFP, to be hired as an ESCO by the school district, at Penridge. So that's not something that we can do under the construction management agreement. We can't manage the ESCO, as we found out, because, at that point, we would be authorizing an award on behalf of the district that we can't do. So that's where we're at. In order to deliver this scope of work, we would have to go through that process.
You gave a preview of an agenda item that's still left.
Okay.
So we'll have further conversation about that since we have an RFP, draft all new.
No problem. Okay. Mark,
That's me.
do you guys have time for site tonight, or is this too much?
Concise. So I'm gonna
We have
hand
the
out,
costs for these options too, so if you guys want that.
so
Especially since he came early enough for finance too, right?
I know, right?
with education, I need to hear that.
We were calling him because we didn't think he was here.
So the copies were handed out, as you see, it was sampled with better details.
Just use the arrow. Just grab it, it goes in order.
Everybody have everything?
You got extras.
Frank's looking for a new site.
So we just wanted to kind of update on quite a few things that happened, I think, since we discussed last. Kind of walk through just a handful of slides here showing predominantly the high school, middle school campus, but then we also, as Garrett mentioned, took a look at some traffic circulation concerns at Sellersville, West Rock Hill, and we also discussed Penn South Middle. So just orientation, here's the high school, middle school campus. This is just the existing conditions, just kind of for a baseline. Then this is the overall plan that shows the two things that we focused most on this campus, which was providing additional parking and athletic facilities. As we go through the plan set here, there's blow-up drawings for each area that we showed improvements for each of the parking lots, and then for the specific athletic facilities. This is coming out of discussion with district personnel. We had some very good conversation with the athletic director, as well as with transportation, and also with the design team and the administration to kind of whittle some things down and zero in maybe a little bit more on where we thought these things wanted to land. So I'm going to walk kind of from the middle of the campus here at the stadium. You can see the green, I can't see it at all. So I'm going to guess where I'm moving. So we're kind of right in the middle of the stadium, and then working our way counterclockwise back around to the transportation area. So one thing you'll notice is right here below the stadium.
The pointer will not work on the TV, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because of this consortium.
You see that very-
Can you pass that here?
Oh, I can see the
It's like a
message.
laser, very faint.
We got the good side.
It's fine, it's like a little-
So, one of the conversations we had with the athletic director was the condition of the existing tennis courts. We understand there's been a few patch and repair projects over the past few years to keep them playable, but based on that discussion and our own observation, we've got some concerns about the longevity of what's out there. It seems that some of those cracks may be a bit deeper than just surface concerns, that we might have some drainage condition underneath, or it's just living past its useful life. So we had looked at, all right, if we're looking at probably a complete replace, not just a strip off and resurface, because the problem is likely that it's in the paving underneath the court surface, not the surface itself. So if we're looking at the idea of replacing the courts, we had discussed, well, we could possibly, in essentially the same footprint, it's kind of hard to tell, the previous slide shows where the existing tennis courts are. This essentially more or less stays within that same footprint, but we've configured them so we can get 5 courts side by side and 2 courts flipped. On the lower end, they would probably be tiered based on the way the grade sits. We pick up an additional court, and by doing that, we open up just a little bit of space over here next to the existing parking area, and we can pick up another 15 parking spaces in close proximity to the stadium, as well as to the tennis courts. I'm not so sure it would be great as overflow parking for the building, but it's not that far walking path here to get to the DAO or to the high school building. So that's one new element that came out of conversation with the athletic director. This
The
area.
athletic director was saying that he thinks there's underlying issues with the court.
It was more that he's seen the surface cracking a little bit more regularly than I think we had historically. So that when you can repair those courts several times, and I think that's what's happened. He wasn't speaking to drainage because he couldn't speak to what's beneath. All he was observing was what he's seeing on the surface seems to be more regular or more frequent from when the last patching occurred. He couldn't tell us when that was, but it's more that the surface is showing that something deeper is happening here.
Because of his observation or your observation?
Both.
How old are the courts?
More than 30 years.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
Are you gonna have